It all started with Sir Hugh, a young knight, hardly more than a boy, taken by the Silent Sisters after being felled in the joust. Barristan Selmy, ever the honourable one, told me he stood vigil himself. The boy had no one else, save for a mother miles away in the Vale. 4 years. Hugh had been Jon Arryn's squire, knighted by Robert after Jon's death. Was he murdered? Was it a Lannister bannerman silencing him before I could speak to him? The thought gnawed at me. His armour was new, made just for this tourney, worth a small fortune. Barristan didn't know if he'd even paid the smith. He paid dearly, I told him, the words tasting like ash. I ordered the armour sent to his mother. Barristan kept walking with me, his voice a steady hum against my troubled thoughts. He mentioned Robert, the king, planned to fight in the melee. I already knew. He suggested drunken words are easily forgotten, but I knew Robert would remember. Some things he always remembered. As we neared the king's pavilion, Robert's roar preceded us, a familiar sound of his rage directed at his squires, Tyrek and Lancel. When we entered, he was complaining, as usual, about his armour, about being too fat for it. I couldn't help but tell him the truth. It wasn't the boys. He was too big for his breeches and his armour. He feigned anger, of course, telling me not to call my king fat. Then sent the lads off on a fool's errand, to find Sir Aaron Santagar for a breastplate stretcher. The boys ran off, and Robert and Barristan laughed. Even I couldn't help but smile at the image of them asking for a non-existent device. The king's woes, I asked, almost as an afterthought. If those squires were Lannisters. He admitted they were. Too many Lannisters around him, I thought, too many. I pushed the thought aside for a moment and brought up the angry words between him and Cersei. That opened the floodgates. He raged about her audacity, daring to tell him he shouldn't fight in the melee. Lyanna wouldn't have done such a thing, he roared. I had to set him straight. You didn't really know Lyanna, Robert. She would have told you had no business fighting in the melee. He scoffed, claiming he still had juices running in his veins, unlike me. Barristan, ever loyal, tried to interject, assuring him no man would dare strike a king in the melee. Robert was furious. He sent Barristan away, but ordered me to stay, to drink. He began to lament the king, my old friend. He said he was never so alive as when he was winning the throne, and never so dead as after it was won. He declared that I, or Jon, should have been king. I reminded him he had the best claim. He didn't want to marry after Lyanna's death, he said. It was Jon who suggested Cersei, beautiful, he admitted, but cold. He even apologized for Sansa's direwolf, admitting Joffrey lied. He dreams, he said, of giving up the crown, of becoming a sellsword in the free cities. But the thought of Joffrey on the throne, with Cersei whispering in his ear, stopped him cold. How, he asked me, could he have made a son like Joffrey? My answer was hollow. He's only a boy. Jon often despaired of you when you were a child. He conceded the point, claiming he turned into a good king. When I didn't respond, he pressed. At least say I'm a better king than Aerys. I admitted the truth in that. He insisted we still had many years to set things right, to make him a good ruler. Changing the subject, he asked who I thought would win the joust. He praised the Knight of Flowers, a son to be proud of, and recounted the story of how the young knight unhorsed Jaime Lannister. Then he mentioned Renly, and how he'd spoken of the Knight of Flowers' lovely 14-year-old sister, Marjorie. A day at the tourney and a night of revelations. Breakfast the next morning, and it was like old times. Robert spoke of our boyhoods, and the stories brought a smile to my face. This was the Robert I grew up with. If I could prove my accusations, this man would listen. The thought of Cersei and Jaime's downfall made the food taste better. I felt better than I had in a long time. At the tourney, I sat with Sansa. Littlefinger, ever the opportunist, bet against the Hound, claiming a dog wouldn't bite the hand that feeds it. He lost, of course, The Hound unhorsed Jaime Lannister after a near miss in the first pass. Sansa, beaming, claimed she knew the Hound would win. Littlefinger, ever the showman, asked her who would win the next match. By the time they led a dazed, helmet-mangled Jaime from the field, Ser Gregor Clegane was in position. The biggest man I'd ever seen, even dwarfing Hodor. A man of ill repute, dashed in the skull of the infant Aegon Targaryen, boasted of raping and murdering his mother, Princess Elia. Rumours swirled about the queer circumstances surrounding the deaths of 2 wives, a sister, his father, and the burning of his brother's face. His opponent was the slim, elegantly armoured Knight of Flowers, Ser Loras Tyrell, with a cape of woven flowers. Sansa, captivated, asked me to ensure he wasn't hurt. I assured her the lances were designed to break, to prevent injury. But I couldn't help but think of Sir Hugh. Gregor struggled mightily with his stallion, while Loras, on his mare, demonstrated masterful horsemanship. When the pass began, Clegane's mount immediately broke into a hard gallop, while Loras's mare charged smoothly. They met, Gregor still fighting his horse, his shield, his lance. Ser Loras's lance struck Gregor perfectly, sending him and his mount down. His lance wasn't even broken. The crowd roared as he raised his visor in victory. Gregor rose in a fury, demanding his sword. He nearly beheaded his horse with a single blow. Then he strode towards Ser Loras, sending him to the ground with his first strike. He was about to deliver a killing blow when the Hound interceded. Gregor aimed blow after blow at his brother's head, but the Hound blocked each one, staying on the defensive. He dropped to his knee when he heard the king's voice booming over the crowd. Gregor's last blow whistled through the air, and then finally he came to his senses, dropped his sword, glared at King Robert, and stormed off. In gratitude, Ser Loras forfeited the championship to the Hound, ending the joust. The crowd, for the first time in his life, cheered for the Hound. Heading towards the archery field, Littlefinger, with that knowing smirk of his, pointed out that Ser Loras must have known his mare was in heat, and that such a thing would disrupt Ser Gregor's stallion. A boy named Angai won the archery, and I sent Alyn to offer him a position in my guard, but he refused. Thoros of Myr, with his flaming sword, won the melee, a grueling 3-hour affair with nearly 40 men. I was pleased Robert hadn't taken part. That night at the feast, I felt more hopeful than I had in a long while. Robert was in good humour, the Lannisters were nowhere in sight, and even my daughters were behaving. Sansa actually spoke pleasantly to Arya, even asking about her dancing. Arya, gleeful, explained she was sore all over and showed a nasty bruise on her leg. Sansa, predictably, declared Arya must be a terrible dancer. Later, I examined Arya's bruise myself while she stood on one leg, an exercise she'd improved at. I asked if Syrio Forel was being too hard on her. "Every hurt is a lesson," she replied, "and every lesson makes you better." I was concerned, despite Syrio's excellent reputation, and the Braavosi style suiting her slim blade. I recalled finding her wandering the castle blindfolded, Syrio teaching her to see with her ears, nose and skin. She'd been practicing spins and backflips. I offered to have someone else take over, but Arya insisted she wanted Syrio. I knew any decent master at arms could teach her the basics without the blindfolds and cartwheels, but there was no use arguing with Arya. I returned to my solar, my thoughts a swirling tide of what I'd learned. I took out the dagger, wondering why Tyrion or anyone would want Bran dead. I was sure Bran's fall was linked to Jon Arryn's death, but the truth eluded me. Jory was still searching the whorehouses. I was certain Gendry was a bastard son of Robert's. There was Edric Storm too, a bastard Robert was forced to recognise because his mother was highborn. I remembered Robert's first child, from when he was still a boy himself. Still, no bastard could threaten Robert's trueborn children. Bastards have few inheritance rights. A knock at the door, a stranger, who turned out to be Varys in disguise. I was amazed. I'd never seen him in anything but silk, velvet and perfume. Now, coarse-spun clothes, mud-caked boots, and the smell of sweat. I exclaimed I never would have recognised him. He said that was good, He'd rather the Queen's spies didn't know about our meeting either. A web of deceit. Varys revealed the Lannisters had hoped to kill Robert during the melee. When I asked why Cersei would forbid Robert to compete if she planned to have him killed, Varys pointed out that the surest way to make Robert compete would be to forbid it. I was furious Varys hadn't told me, but soon admitted I would have gone straight to Robert, who would have fought to show his enemies he didn't fear them. Varys explained that there are two sorts of people in the Red Keep, those loyal to the realm and those loyal only to themselves. He said he now knew me to be loyal to the realm because I dissuaded the king from entering the melee. Cersei, he revealed, feared me because Robert would never harm me, not even at her command, whereas Robert would execute Varys in a twinkling at the queen's request, since the king had little love for sneaks, spies and eunuchs. I argued that Robert must have other friends, that his brothers were surely loyal. Varys replied that hating the queen and loving the king were not quite the same thing. Sir Barristan loved his honour, Grand Maester Pycelle loved his office, and Littlefinger loved Littlefinger. He added that the Kingsguard were a paper shield. Sir Boros Blunt and Sir Meryn Trant were the Queen's men, Sir Barristan was old, and the loyalties of the rest were suspect. I insisted we must warn Robert, but Varys reminded me that without proof, we would only lose. I insisted the plotters would try again, and Varys agreed, stating that together we might be able to stop them. As he rose to leave, Varys reminded me to continue treating him with my accustomed contempt. As Varys reached the door, I asked how Jon Arryn died. A rare and costly poison, he told me, called the Tears of Lys. He'd suggested a taster, but Lord Arryn refused. When I asked who administered the poison, Varys claimed it was probably his squire, Sir Hugh, who now lay dead. After Lysa left for the Eyrie, Hugh remained and had the money to buy new armour. My final question, the one that lingered, what had Jon Arryn been doing that led to his murder? Varys's reply was chilling, asking questions.